Hello and welcome to Trade Routes at PCB. This is your update on international trade. My name is Gina Cruz and I'm your host for today. With each episode of Trade Routes, we will be bringing in experts who can speak to the topics at hand. Today, I'm joined by one of PCB's leading minds in the world of international trade. She is a seasoned expert in her field, Breanna Leininger, the Vice President of U.S. Operations. For any listeners, we do have an 800 number. If you have questions, 888-908-6638. Or you can email us at tariffquestions@pcbglobaltrade.com. So in today's program, Breanna will be discussing the cancellation of trade exemptions deeply affecting the Chinese markets, known as de minimis. Breanna will help us understand the logistics behind the de minimis, what this cancellation could mean for you and your business, and answer some frequently asked questions on the topics. So Breanna, tell me, what is the de minimis rule?
So to start off, what is de minimis, right? De minimis is a value where it's just kind of like a threshold. It's saying that there's a certain value. If it's under that value, you don't have to go through all the formal entry requirements. Every de minimis rule in the world has certain exemptions to that. There's certain goods that require formal entry no matter what. The U.S. has had one of the highest de minimis rates in the world. In about 2016, we moved it from $200, $250 up to $800 because of that's really when you started to see the huge surge of e-commerce.
Right.
And so it was asked, hey, can we raise this de minimis to try and get some focus on packages? And, events like COVID and the expansion of online shopping really exploded that. So many people have received a de minimis package and never even realized they just received a de minimis package because you just ordered it online and it showed up at your door and that was it. The price you paid was the price you paid when you purchased. That is changing for good. That has changed for goods from China. It was also proposed in those executive orders for Canada and Mexico. And so depending what happens after that 30-day pause, but what it means essentially is there's no de minimis, meaning there's no minimum value to avoid entry. Every single thing, even if it's valued at 10 cents, needs an entry if the goods are of Chinese origin.
I'm going to date myself here. Wasn't it $99 at one point or $100?
I don't remember it being that low. It was $200 for a really, really long time. We were on par with, and most countries fall in that $150 to $200 range. I don't remember it being $99. Not to say that it wasn't. I just don't remember.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago, and I think Canada's 25. So we've got quite a hefty de minimis there currently. So what are the new data element requirements for this type of entry for people that are shipping, daily shipments that have that Chinese component?
So it's not so much new requirements and maybe new to the filer requirements.
Right.
De minimis packages or shipments that were valued under $800 needed a lot less than, say, a formal entry. So for a formal entry, it's going to require things like full names and addresses of all the parties involved, the federal tax identification number, be that social security number or an IRS number for the person in the U.S. who's receiving it. Another thing to note is that with these new tariffs on China, there's also additional tariff rates that we have to put in. So it's a much more complex filing than what they had experienced previously. I would definitely recommend if you are importing goods or have been importing goods that are country of origin China and taking advantage of the de minimis or even some of those informal entries, you are definitely going to want to see how it impacts you, not just from a duty standpoint, because duties that you've never experienced because they were free under that $800 rule now apply on top of the 10%. So it's not.
So it's more than just the 10%.
Yeah. So it's not just that it's just 10%. It's 10% plus, whatever is applicable to that good. You're definitely going to want to get your products reviewed to see what your specific impact is.
So tell me about country of origin versus shipped from.
Yeah, so it's probably one of the most misunderstood terms, I would say, in all of trade. So country of origin means the country in which the good was produced, manufactured, or grown, where it was born, essentially. Right? Because we live in a global economy, as we've very much seen this week, how interconnected we are around the globe. Often goods will be shipped from one country and then shipped to another and then shipped to another. The origin does not change if that product does not change. If there's substantial transformation to the product, and substantial, not just repainting it, if it's a component and it's being incorporated to another product, that might change origin. But for the most part, the origin is the country in which that product was produced, manufactured, or grown.
So if you bought something at your local Home Depot and then you turn around and repackaged it and sold it, country of origin doesn't change to Canada. It's still where it's born.
Correct. And I would recommend anyone to go to any store and double check to see what the country of origin markings are. You might be a little surprised to see what they are. But yeah, that's correct. It doesn't just change because it was bought or shipped somewhere else.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. What is the difference between a Section 321 and an Entry 86?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
Entry type 86 is just an entry type for goods that qualify for Section 321. There's no difference between the two. I would say the only difference, and I think what made people think that they were different, is that the T86 entry was a pilot program. It was still optional to file an entry type 86. We recommended people file entry type 86 because most often maybe FDA oversaw the good or USDA, and you had to get those filing requirements in. Because that's one important thing to note. And I think something that, de minimis has been a topic of conversation definitely over the last year. It's been a topic of conversation really since the explosion of trade. But when I noted that there were some goods that even though they were valued under $800, they still required full entry. PGAs are an excellent example of that because many of those partner government agencies, which we refer to as PGAs, had a zero de minimis already. So entry was required already.
Right. So if there's another government agency involved, more than likely you couldn't even use the Section 321.
Yeah. And in that case, those people would file an entry type 86 so that they made those PGA filings and still took advantage of that duty-free treatment. And that's really the T86 was a tool. It wasn't different than Section 321.
Got it. Okay. Is there a way to import without de minimis? So if someone has shipments that are like, how do they switch from what they've been doing, Section 321s, to now a formal entry?
So they're going to want to reach out to a trade provider and find out how to clear. If those packages come in and their country of origin, China, which that's where I said there's going to be increased inspections to look for those entries, especially if they're coming direct from China or other places that are known to kind of ship a lot of Chinese goods. Those goods are not going to clear through the port of entry until proof of entry has been made and cleared. So there's no way to really avoid it. I think there's many people are trying to see how they can kind of navigate through because it is an increased cost. I highly recommend not navigating through it because here's the thing. People file entries every single day. Hundreds of thousands of people and companies are having their entries filed right now as we're talking. Filing the entry is not a barrier. I think it's getting to that entry filing when you haven't been in an environment where you've had to file entry can feel really cumbersome. But to make sure that your package doesn't get seized, refused, detained, just set up and file those entries.
And in fairness, that could change in 30 days where US and Canada are also included in this. So get ahead of it.
Yeah, when Mexico and Canada are included, definitely. And keep in mind, Mexico, Canada, and China are the US's major trading partners. They make up a majority of the shipments that come into the US. And just to kind of get the impact of what this means, about 4 million packages come into the US every day that fell under this de minimis rule.
Wow, that's a lot of
projected up about $1 billion from the previous year. And so many, if not most of those packages are coming from those 3 major trading partners. Mm-hmm. And so I would say too, don't wait until March to see what happens, especially as the impact of Canada and Mexico, get those importer accounts set up now so that when it does hit, you have no flow. When the US Post Office decided on Tuesday they weren't going to accept any more packages from China, and then things started to pile up, 4 million packages pile up pretty quickly. So they restarted it on Wednesday. Don't let your package get caught in that backlog. Have what you need so that it can move on through, and you don't have any delays.
And there's no differentiation between a person getting the shipment or a company, correct? This is the de minimis requirement for people and companies.
Yeah. And there was I would say if there was any win in this, de minimis also had really strict rules, meaning 1 shipment per person per day. So it's not like you could take, if I was sending, say, you 10 shipments, it's not like I could file 10 de minimis filings to you from me to you. That was not allowed. That's another reason why de minimis has been kind of under fire, because there were a lot of people taking advantage of those rules. So the advantage is now if you're filing formal entry, there's not really that limitation. You don't have that one-to-one limitation, meaning I can only send this. And if anyone had noticed sometimes where they made a purchase and their packages came in like a stream rather than all in one box, a lot of that was because of that de minimis rule. But you don't have that anymore. So if there's any small win, it's probably that. You can file as many entries to one person as you want, as long as you formally file them.
And this is just off the cuff because I had a question this morning from a client that sends shipments like this down, and now they want to send 1 box across the border, but to 20 people. That can't happen.
No. So that's one thing important to know on a formal entry. On a formal entry, you have to identify all the parties. So the full name, address, tax identification number of everyone who's interested or has interest in that shipment. So even if you were to send it in 1 box to 20 parties, you still have to claim all 20 people.
So every transaction has to be identified from A to B.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. I think that's all our questions, unless there's anything you want to add that I may have missed.
Not that I can think of. Just to, right now it's going to be really important. Just stay fluid with these things, right? And as challenges come up, don't see them as obstacles, right? The news isn't always great on what changes are happening, but people do this every single day, and they successfully do this every single day. So it's not a complete roadblock. It's just a challenge.
Right, just a shift.
Yeah.
Perfect. It was very informative. Thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing from you in the days to come with any new updates.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Trade Routes. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts for our next episode, please feel free to reach out to us at tariffquestions@pcbglobaltrade.com. They could be part of our next time here. As always, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. That is where we are going to keep everyone up to date on anything as we learn it. We also are on LinkedIn and Facebook, so don't miss any future updates. Until next time, thank you for joining us.